Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you, as always, for taking the time to check out this week's live stream. We're going to be diving into metabolism, and that's going to be the big topic that we're going to be discussing for the day. Before I do get started, of course, guys, I do want to mention my website, which is bponlinefitness.com. It stays updated weekly. I always add to my fitness blog on there, and I always add a ton of information on there related to different topics. You can check out information such as from my online fitness program on there as well. There is an email newsletter that you can sign up to when you scroll down, or email news list, or email list, I should say, that you can sign up to when you go to the bottom of the page. So that's there for you to access as well. But there is a ton of information on there. You can sign up for online fitness coaching, of course, there as well. But I do want to share that because there's a ton of free resources for you to access there on various fitness and nutrition related topics and to give you better advice on different aspects of fitness. So, with all that being said, I do also want to mention one more thing. And I do have a new YouTube video that I've just uploaded recently to my YouTube channel where I discussed the difference between free weights and strength machines. So that is what I discussed recently. It's a roughly 7-minute YouTube video where I sort of break down the differences between the two sort of systems and well, the two different modalities when it comes to strength training machines versus free weights. So that's what I discussed in that video. So definitely check it out. It is on my YouTube channel. And this video will be available for you to view on YouTube as well. So even if you don't watch live, of course, you can view it on YouTube. So with all that being said, guys, let's go ahead and talk about today's topic on demystifying the basics of metabolism. So in this topic, we're going to be going over many different things. And even though you would think that metabolism would be kind of clear cut, there's a little bit more to metabolism that I'm going to be going over with you. So these are some of the topics that we're going to sort of touch on. We're going to go over what metabolism actually is and going beyond the aspect of fast and slow metabolism. We're going to go over the myth of boosting your metabolism, why some people seem to eat everything and stay thin, and does muscle really burn that many calories, as well as metabolic adaptation, why your body fights weight loss, the starvation mode, myth versus reality, age of metabolism, and how much does it really slow down as we age, meal frequency metabolism, does eating 6 small meals help? So, this is, I think, a very important topic for a lot of people. And this was something that I kind of was not really fully aware of whenever before I got my certification being a trainer. This was something that I didn't really understand fully as far as the aspect of metabolism. And there's some misconceptions that a lot of people have when it comes to metabolism, especially when we get into the starvation mode. That's a very common sort of misconception people have. And there are different things that a lot of people aren't really fully knowledgeable about when it comes to understanding metabolism. So, metabolism itself isn't just about how fast or slow your body burns calories. It's the entire chemical process that keeps you alive, every breath, every heartbeat, every muscle contraction. That's what metabolism is at work. So, think of your metabolism as your body's engine. So it's more than just what we think about when it comes to burning calories. Calories are just the fuel, and your cells are the cylinders doing the work and keeping the body going. So there's a few different terms that I'm going to mention here when we're talking about metabolism. And some of these are known as the basal metabolic rate as well as the thermic effect of food. So the basal metabolic rate is the energy your body uses just to stay alive. Breathing, circulating, blood, regulating temperature. It's the normal sort of energy that your body is using to be able to, have normal functions to, run fluidly, basically. Physical activity, so the energy you burn through movement from workouts to daily chores, so that can have an effect on your metabolism. Thermic effect of food, so the calories your body uses to digest, absorb, and process nutrients. So when you're consuming food, a certain amount of that food, of course, is being used as a fuel. It's being used for your body to digest, absorb, and to process those specific nutrients. So that's what we mean when we're talking about the thermic effect of food. And again, the basal metabolic rate is just that normal, sort of energy that's being used to keep the body functioning. So again, as we're continuing on here, don't just think of metabolism itself as just a single thing and just about the aspect of burning calories, because it is more about how our body is using this as like a it's using all of what we give it as fuel to be able to do all of these different functions in our body. So the next point I want to go over here is the myth of boosting your metabolism. So a lot of times you'll hear to drink this, eat that, or do this one workout and you'll boost your metabolism. However, the reality is that your metabolism isn't a switch you can flip. So, what actually works when it comes to, your metabolism? So, building and preserving muscle, resistance training increases your resting metabolic rate. So, resistance training is what's going to really help to, with your metabolism and being able to basically increase that resting metabolic rate. Now, we're not really boosting our metabolism, we're just increasing that resting metabolic rate. Kind of like what we just mentioned with the basal metabolic rate. That's what's happening is that we're building and we're preserving muscle through resistance training, and that's what's kind of altering that metabolic rate in our body. So, another thing too that can help a ton is staying active throughout the day. This is known as non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And what this is really, really small sort of movement that you do in the day. Like, let's say, for example, let's say you park far away from like the store and taking time to walk there. Basically, thinking of small little actions that you do that's not really structured exercise, but that's allowing you to be more active. Another thing can be like fidgeting, or maybe you get up and you're running in place or walking in place. Like different things like that are basically your non-exercise activity, where it's basically movement that you're performing outside of, your normal structured exercise. So this can make a huge impact, when you even when you have days where you're not being active, you can still incorporate a little bit more movement. And that's basically what we're talking about here when it comes to NEAT and how to really incorporate it. You're just adding a little bit more movement into your day-to-day life. Another thing too is of course eating enough protein. This can help support recovery and increase the thermic effect of food as well. As mentioned, that thermic effect of food is how your body's absorbing and digesting that food and using it and sort of being able to distribute those nutrients in your body. So, like I've mentioned before in many streams, that whenever we talk about, food itself and the quality of your nutrients really make a difference. Those quality nutrients are going to help support your body's functions. They're not just about getting, that maximum amount of calorie intake, but about being able to use, more quality nutrients or get more quality nutrients in your body. Sleep and manage stress can keep hormones that influence metabolism balanced. So make sure that you have a proper sleep schedule. I've discussed this a bit in some other streams, but sleep does play a crucial role in how our body functions better and how our body is able to, metabolize. So make sure that you have a proper sleep schedule. Getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night is going to really make a difference. And again, this is a habit that you have to build. It does take time to do that. But whenever you think about sort of incorporating these different, sort of points, they will make a difference. And one thing you're kind of noticing here when we're talking about what actually works in regards to, helping your metabolism is these are all basically just healthy habits. It's not something crazy that we've not discussed before. We've got resistance training, we've got, staying active throughout the day, we've got eating protein, and then we've got sleep and managing stress. So these are pretty common things that we've discussed, and you're just combining those together. These are all great ways that can help benefit your metabolism. So it's a complex of processes that adjust slowly to energy intake, calories, muscle mass, activity level, sleep and stress, and hormonal balance. So your metabolism is really processing all these different things in order to, get the sort of effects and sort of the effect that your body is going to get is all based on your specific, system and what you're putting into your system as it relates to metabolism. So, why some people seem to eat everything and stay thin? So, this is a really common thing that you'll hear when it comes to metabolism is that there are certain people that do kind of have, they always say high or low metabolism. So everyone's metabolism is different. Some people do naturally have a higher resting metabolic rate. Again, that's all determined by our activities. Many things can sort of determine that, meaning their body is going to burn more calories just to stay alive. So this is influenced, of course, by genetics. It can be influenced by muscle mass, hormones, and lifestyle. So more muscle is going to equal higher calorie burn at rest. One thing that I noticed a lot since I really got to where, I gained a lot of muscle and started gaining more muscle is that I noticed that I could eat a ton and I still would have that feeling of being hungry. And the reason is of course, is that I have so much more muscle in my body, and so it's taking that food and it's using that food. So that's why I could get hungry so quickly, even though I would eat a lot at a time. And it happens to me now because my metabolism is the way it is, because I have more muscle, my body is really burning that, those calories pretty quickly at rest. So that's why. Another thing too, again, going back to non-exercise activity, I think this is a crucial thing to do and a crucial thing to start to think about, especially when you're wanting to really sort of increase your resting metabolic rate. And again, this is the secret burn that most don't notice. Like I mentioned, this is sort of somewhat of a rehash of what I just discussed in the last slide. But think about incorporating some of these in your day-to-day life if say for example, you're more sedentary, you don't do a lot of movement throughout the day. Think of adding some of these, different types of movement patterns in your day-to-day life, such as fidgeting, pacing, walking, standing up. All of these little things add up. A lot of times, what I do, because I do, you know, a lot of my work is done online, of course. So sometimes I'll get up and I'll run in place. I'll get up and I'll kind of move around. I do that throughout the day, even though I work out, early in the morning and I do pretty long, roughly hour and 30-minute exercise. I still try to incorporate movement and get steps in throughout the day. So it's still important to stay a little bit active, even if you're sort of doing structured workouts. So think about that as well. Some people subconsciously move more throughout the day, burning hundreds of extra calories. If you fidget pretty often or anything to that effect, that's going to burn calories in some shape or form. So, I do that sometimes unintentionally and don't think about it. There's going to be some things that you do that are known as non-exercise activity, such as those different movements that are going to sort of help with calorie burn. So think about this outside of your structured exercise, what you can do to sort of move a little bit more. Again, this is not like you're building a structured routine, you're just adding more movement in your overall life. So it's not magic, it's metabolic individuality. So while some burn more without trying, everyone can optimize metabolism through building muscle, staying active throughout the day, sleeping well, managing stress, and eating whole nutrient dense foods. Again, these are all things we've discussed. And it's not something crazy, it's the way that you do these things is to consistently focus on these tasks day to day, and you will start to notice changes in how your body looks, how you feel, and, it will change your metabolism at the same time. So metabolism adaptation and why your body fights fat loss. So, metabolic adaptation is your body's protective response to calorie restriction. So, when you eat less and lose weight, your metabolism adjusts, burning fewer calories to conserve energy. So, when you are giving your body this constant state of, not getting enough calories and nutrients, it's going to really be sort of basically a hindrance to your progress, because you're basically, in other words, kind of training your body to not really be able to process nutrients as well, and in lack of a better term. So why does it happen, even though when you're restricting your calories, why does that happen where you still aren't, sort of losing that weight? So what this does is this is reducing body mass. So a smaller body is going to require fewer calories. There's going to be hormonal shifts. So there could be a drop in thyroid hormones, leptin, and reproductive hormones. Muscle loss. So you could have less metabolically active tissue, which is going to lead to fewer calories burned. If you have less muscle, you're not going to lose as much weight. Muscle Muscle gain and fat loss can really basically go hand in hand, because the more that you gain muscle, it's going to help in how much you can burn calories. And that's why I think it's important for somebody who is focusing on, even if they're focusing on fat loss, that they still focus on not just doing cardio exercise, but incorporating strength training exercise. Because when you do strength training, and any sort of weightlifting based exercise, is naturally going to help stimulate muscle. So when you're stimulating that muscle, you're going to grow muscle. And in turn, as you're growing that muscle, it's going to lead to, having more calories burned than you would before. So if you're somebody who has a lower NEAT, a lower non-exercise activity, then this is going to lead to subconscious activity to decrease when energy is low. So there's a lot of factors that sort of play into this aspect of why your body's not sort of losing weight even though you're like restricting calories. There's a lot more to it than you think there is. So this goes into the next point that I want to mention, and I think a lot of people really rely on this specific sort of they really think that this is how things work when it comes to, especially like if we're talking about fat loss and weight loss, that calorie restriction, like completely not eating, is how you lose weight. And again, that's why there's a difference there when we're talking about that metabolic adaptation. Our body is going to process things differently if we're not giving it what it needs. It's going to change how it processes it. So, this is a big thing I think is important to understand. So, the myth is that if you eat too little, your body stops burning fat completely. So that's not true. Your body doesn't stop burning fat. It adapts by slowing energy expenditure to preserve life-sustaining functions. So when calories are too low for too long, metabolic rate slows down to conserve energy. So your body is trying to use that energy for more, of your normal bodily functions. Muscle tissue is going to break down at the same time, which is going to reduce calorie burn. So again, think of having increased muscle is going to lead to a higher calorie burn. Hormone shifts, this is going to lower thyroid and leptin, but increase cortisol, which is not a good thing. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and when you don't have, you can get an increase in cortisol if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're, constantly stressed. There's a lot of things that can sort of really influence increases in cortisol. But when these hormones are, sort of shifting, that's another sign that it's going to prevent you from really burning those calories. Energy, strength, and recovery decline as well when you're sort of in this starvation mode and you're restricting your calories too much. Fat loss may continue even though you're in this sort of starvation mode, but at a slower and less efficient rate. So you would likely still burn, you would still lose fat, but it's not as efficient because your metabolism is where it is because of a lot of these different factors. Your muscle tissues are broken down, they're not able to burn as many calories, your hormones are shifted too. There's a lot of different things that play into how your body is going to metabolize food and nutrients. So think about, again, that's like I've had to mention, that when it comes to, especially when we're talking about, because there's so many people that really don't understand the fact that when you eat meals throughout the day, that actually does help with your metabolism. I always try to mention to my clients that having a really, laid out sort of set of meals that you eat throughout the day, like eating your whole meals, not skipping meals, making sure you're getting nutrients throughout the day makes a difference in your metabolism. And a lot of people don't really understand that aspect. And there's a lot of different, there's just so much information thrown out there, and we automatically have this notion that we burn calories and we're going to lose weight if we don't eat. But your body, when it gets those nutrients, it's going to help. Again, the same thing with muscle. When we do strength-based workouts, there's all these different aspects that are going to make it so much more efficient to lose weight than just trying to completely cut out calories. Your body needs those nutrients. You can't have it in this starvation mode, otherwise you're going to slow down these systems to where it's going to prevent the calories from really burning in a more efficient way. So just keep that in mind that it helps to get, nutrients throughout the day. It helps to, do strength-based workouts. It helps with, you know, having a proper sleep schedule makes a difference. All of these things make a big difference in how your body is going to be able to metabolize better. Another thing too is on age and metabolism and how much does it really slow down. So the research in reality is that studies show that metabolic rate stays stable from your 20s through your 50s far longer than most people think. So after the age of around 60, metabolism gradually slows by about 0.7% per year, mainly due to muscle loss, hormonal shifts, and reduced activity, not aging itself. So again, what actually drives the slowdown is the loss of lean muscle, lowering your resting calorie burn, which is your basal metabolic rate, less daily movement, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, fewer calories burned outside of workouts, sleep quality, again, and recovery decline. Hormonal leads to hormonal disruption. So it's all determined by your overall lifestyle and how active you are, the nutrients you're getting in your body, doing, you know, proper sleep, getting, enough daily movement throughout the day. That's all of the different things that you can do that can help to, you know, have your body burn more of those calories efficiently. So just think about these, different points that it's not about your age, it's about how, your lifestyle, what you do, your nutrients, your movement, all of that matters. So meal frequency and metabolism. Does eating six small meals help? So the common belief is that eating every 2 to 3 hours keeps your metabolism hot and helps you burn more calories. So the myth is the number of meals doesn't magically speed up metabolism. It's your total daily intake and activity that determine energy burn, not how often you eat. And again, like what I mentioned earlier, it's about balancing those two where you're eating decent amount of meals, but also staying active so that your body is going to process those nutrients, a little bit better. So the science again is that the thermic effect of food is known as TEF. Your body burns energy digesting food, but total TEF depends on your total calories, not your meal frequency. So again, think about the quality of your calories, and this is something that I've mentioned over and over again, is that when you get quality nutrients and calories in your body, it matters. And it's not just about having the maximum amount of calories, but about, the quality of them. So three large meals can equal six meals and have the same metabolic impact when calories and macros are equal. So for me, I usually just eat three pretty decently sized meals. I always eat a pretty big breakfast after I work out. I eat a pretty medium sized lunch. I don't eat too much for lunch, but then I'll eat a decent sized sort of dinner. And then I'll kind of put snacks in between. So you don't have to have massive meals throughout the day. It's about more distributing, sort of that calorie intake. And I think doing it in those large meals makes a difference and without you having to rely on trying to spread out everything. And what I always mention too with clients, I do mention to spread it and spread out your intake because I think it helps. And when I talk about spreading out intake, I don't necessarily mean you're eating six big meals, but that you're getting, those three major meals, which is your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you're also kind of adding a little bit of snacks in between there in between those big major meals, I think that helps a ton. So it's not like you're eating a massive amount of meals throughout the day, but it's sort of having decent sized meals while having a little bit of snacks in there. Meal timing can, however, influence energy levels, hunger control, and performance. I usually try to eat at a pretty consistent time, each day. It's usually pretty much the same time. So just know that when you time your meals can make a difference. Like I've sort of mentioned when it comes to when we're talking about the aspect of protein and sort of muscle gain. Again, I think post workout having a good decent sized breakfast I think helps, and that's why I eat a pretty big breakfast because when my workouts are always in the morning, so I don't eat. I'll have like a little bit of carbs before I go into my workout, but then when I get done with my workout, I try to get as much good quality nutrients in my body from that workout so that my body can really get the nutrients it needs to, help aid in the muscle gain and hypertrophy process. So that's why I eat a pretty big breakfast in that aspect because of my body, going through the stress it did in the workout. So that's, another thing to keep in mind is it's really, you know, making sure that you're getting good quality nutrients and, having decent sized meals and having those meals sort of match your particular goal as far as your calorie and macro intake. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I really hope that you found this helpful and valuable. I know I kind of went over a bunch of different things, a bunch of different terms. But if you guys have questions about anything I discussed here today when it comes to metabolism, nutrition, anything of that nature, feel free to let me know and I will answer those questions for you. Again, guys, check out my website, which is bponlinefitness.com. I will have a X Spaces discussion tomorrow, and you can check that out. If you, I will likely have like a link to where you can check that out. But that'll be up for you to, listen to. The X Spaces is not like it's not like a sort of presentation. It's just like kind of like in a podcast format. So it's just something that you can listen to, but I'm going to be having a separate topic that I'm going to be discussing there. So it's not just a rehash of what I'm talking about today. I'm going to talk about something unique on that platform. So if you're interested, feel free to listen tomorrow, Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, I've been doing those every Thursday. Another thing too, that if you haven't followed me on TikTok, I am doing TikToks now on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you follow me on there at Brandon SP Fit, you can watch my live streams that I do on there on Tuesday, as well as some of the other videos that I post and share on there. So with all that being said, guys, I really appreciate your time. I hope that you found this helpful and valuable. And just feel free to reach out if you have any questions about anything I've discussed today or in any previous topic I've went over. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next one.